What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video for the Rugby Championship. Round 1, Game 2, the Pumas versus the All Blacks. I've had to wait a little bit of time for the teams to get released. I kind of always forget about the time difference between here and the UK for those guys over there. So they've just sort of announced them about in the last hour or so. The teams have come out. So we have already got the video up for the Springboks versus the Wallabies game. You can go check that one out after this one if you haven't already. What we do in these preview videos is we check out the official teams that have been announced to play for both sides. We'll have a run through the list, give a bit of a reaction to the team, check out who we think's maybe some good players, maybe some questionable picks, thoughts on how we think the teams might play, and finally, of course, giving a score prediction. If you enjoy this style of video, make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel because we'll be doing these types of videos throughout the whole of the Rugby Championship. Starting out then with the home team, Argentina. Now, I've seen a opposite discourse around Argentina. I've seen comments and people putting out tweets of like, Argentina, they're just going to sort of mess about in this championship. They're just going to use this as the platform for the World Cup. They're not really going to try. They're just going to test out loads of combinations. I've seen the exact opposite comments from other people saying, people need to watch out. This tournament is the one Argentina are going to go for the hardest. And some people are actually, picking Argentina to take this game from New Zealand. So I'm really, really looking forward to see this as a neutral to see how this game gets on. So in the front row then we have Thomas Gajo, Julian Montoya and Sordoni. So Thomas Gajo, last year, man, he's still a young lad, but he's absolutely getting in the mix of things. He's a dominant player when he has the ball in his hands as well. Julian Montoya got captain, which a couple of people seem to be surprised about. He's a very experienced player. It's him and Creevy are really your main two guys in terms of like your number of caps going in there. I like Julian Montoya as a captain. I think he's got quite a calm manner about him to actually talk to a referee, and I know he likes to get involved with the referees. I quite like him as a captain choice. And of course, he's done a captaincy a number of times for this Argentinian side. In the lock department, who else are going to be? Alemano and Lavanini. We saw this combo just all year, I think. I think there might have been a couple of games missed due to cards along the way, but these two lads sticking together like glue. They absolutely work well together. The line-out situation for Argentina last year also looking good, but these lads, defensively was one thing that I was really enjoying from Argentina last year. The defensive side of their game really stepped up, especially in the game where they actually beat the All Blacks last year. The defensive side for them was absolutely fantastic, and these two lads were absolutely in the forefront of just committing tackles, all day long throughout the tournament last year. So looking forward to see them back in. But again, just the card discipline, we've seen it before. Certainly some red cards to talk about in that combo there. The back row, a switch from what I was expecting, to be fair. So Pablo Matera moving to the flanker position, where I'm so used to talking about him at 8. Juan Martin Gonzalez on the open side flanker, and Rodrigo Bruni goes in the number 8 shirt. So no Kramer. I was aware there was a situation about him maybe being banned from games from something that went on at club level. And maybe that's carried over to international. I haven't actually followed up on that. I'm not sure if that's the reason why, or maybe they're just resting him for next week. But still a solid back row. Gonzalez is one of the ones last year who really stood out to me. Not a lot of talk about him from anywhere, but I thought he had a really, really good tournament. I think he was in my Super Brew as well for quite a few of the weeks. I thought he was very, very impressive. The halfback partnership then. Bertrand goes in alongside of Santiago Carreras. Now, Sanchez back in the team, but maybe Santiago Carreras has shown off last year what he can do. He can step up into that fly half jersey at international. With no Sanchez in, though, it leads me to think they're going to give the kicking duties over to Boffelli probably again. Santiago Carreras can absolutely kick, but Sanchez maybe would be the first choice if he was in the team. With him not there, I imagine Boffelli still on his kicking duties. In the centre partnership, Lucio Cinti and Matthias Moroni. Now, this was the combinations they had last year for the centres and wingers for Argentina. They seem to have a great amount of utility to just switch people to different positions. It does make it quite hard for someone like me who's not necessarily the most versed in Southern Hemisphere rugby, trying to increase my learning about them. Having these players move around so much last year into all these different positions, trying to keep track of them all, does sort of blend a few of them together. So it's one thing I'm going to try very hard this year to really pick out individual players in this Argentinian backline, because the backs for Argentina last year in a couple of big games, like in the games against Scotland, really showed off. They did have some really nice strike plays that were going on, just opening up defenses. And once they get through, there's a lot of pace between them. I mean, even Santiago Carreras is getting himself in the mix of that as well. There's some pace on these lads. If they get behind your little defensive wall, They do run pretty far, and they will go for tries if you give them a chance. And then finally, in the back three, Matteo Carreras alongside of Delgui and Boffelli going in at fullback position. I tend to think of Boffelli as on the right wing is where I would sit him. But playing in fullback, he's got good coverage in terms of his actual gameplay, being able to cover the backfield. I don't really think I've ever seen him play just fullback outright. I probably have at some point. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But looking forward to see how he gets on there. And then we'll move on quickly to the subs. We have Augustin Creevy goes in alongside of Vivas and Bejo. Now, there are a couple of new names on this list for me. Rubiolo, I really can't put a face to the name. I feel like it rings a bit of a bell. I can't picture him, though, alongside of Bezan Velez. So I'll try and keep an eye out for those two when the actual game is on, so I can hopefully express a bit more next week. And then alongside them, we also have Nicolas Sanchez and Matias Orlando. So Sanchez on the bench, it's probably not a terrible move, right? You're going to bring on someone with experience later, give Carreras a good shot, at a big team like New Zealand. The other thing you want to try and avoid is injury, right? They've got a massive game against New Zealand. There's also a lot of travelling in the Rugby Championship. So, you've got one big game here. The last thing you want is Sanchez getting on injured in the first 10 minutes, and then he's in desperate trouble for the rest of the tournament. So I don't mind this. I think bringing Sanchez on later is still a good move, and Orlando can back them there. Again, he's another one. If I think of Orlando, I put him as a centre. But there's so much utility between their centres and wingers. I feel like they're just going to chop and change depending on how the game's going. Moving on then to the New Zealand team. Now, I've been trying to keep up a little bit more with my my New Zealand rugby. I did try and do a couple of videos about the Super Rugby before Sanzar decided to give me a copyright strike. So unfortunately, that took that away a little bit. But there's some mixed feelings about New Zealand, which is quite interesting. Whenever you think of New Zealand coming into a rugby tournament, there's always, very high hopes for them to do very well. They've won the last number of rugby championships as well. But I've seen a lot of talk this year about how New Zealand's a bit unsteady and how New Zealand club level's been a bit shaky. But they won the Super Rugby and they were, both finalists in the Super Rugby. So I'm not sure where to what to sort of take my information from that. But in terms of this game, they've absolutely loaded up on a pretty heavy team. To be fair, they've got a big game next week against South Africa as well. So they've got to work that fine line. But they are going up against Argentina away for this first game. So there's a really tricky line for them to walk here, because the last thing you want to do is go a bit too safe for this game and have Argentina punish you. You lose the first opening game, and then suddenly that South Africa game becomes a must-win in terms of the championship. So in terms of the front row then, Ethan de Groot, Dane Coles and Tyrell Lomax coming in there. Now, I think it was Cody Taylor who was the guy that was mentioned to me about that he's actually now like the highest try scorer for the forwards in the Super Rugby. So Dane Cole starting over him, still a very good player, got a lot of pace on him. I'm not sure actually who has more caps out of the two of them, but Dane Cole's actually come on and brings a bit of a fiery spirit, doesn't he, to the game. In the lock department, Scott Barrett alongside of Josh Lord. Now, I think when I was sort of picking my team, I went for Brodie Retallick and Sam Whitelock. So they've gone down a different angle. Scott Barrett can also play 6 if you need him to. He can shift back into that flanker position. In terms of the back row, Shannon Frizzell goes in alongside Sam Cane, who is captain, of course. I'm really looking forward to see Sam Cane hopefully performing really well in an All Blacks jersey again before we get to this World Cup. And then Ardi Sarve in the number 8 shirt. There was a couple of comments from people talking about maybe someone else is actually going to get in this number 8 shirt, maybe moving Ardi Sarve to flanker was another discussion that was being had. But Ardi Sarve is so good, man. He's just got to be in that starting team every week. An absolute unit going forward with the ball. I really enjoy him at 8. I enjoy the way you can just play him off the back of a scrum, let him just run it. So on, you have to put about 2 men on him just to tackle him anyway. I think he's an absolute brilliant player. So, I'd absolutely have Ardi Sarve at 8 for me there. In the halfback partnership, Aaron Smith goes in alongside Damien McKenzie, who has been in good form, and it's nice to see. Fly halves. There's some great depth in New Zealand at the minute for just choice of who you want for an international fly half. But Damien McKenzie playing extremely well in the Super Rugby. I've been really enjoying just his open play, the ability to run with the ball, the counter-attacking. I've seen him where he's been filtering back, playing in the backfield and going on these huge counter runs. Argentina are pretty good in terms of defence. We got to see it last year. But towards the end of the game, when you get a little bit more tired, if the scoreboard's not against you, we have before begun to see Argentina, leave a bit more space and open up a little bit. That's the sort of danger area where Damien McKenzie will just, run himself and just absolutely utilise it. All with that cheeky smile the whole way along, especially as he does his conversions. And then in the centre partnership, Geordie Barrett alongside of Rico Ioane. This was a partnership that we sort of got introduced to last year, right? Geordie Barrett moving to 12. And I have to say, I enjoyed, I think, every game I saw him at 12. I don't think I saw him have a bad game at inside centre. I know for the Hurricanes he's playing at fly half, but I actually quite like him at inside centre, and the ability for him to just shift to inside centre and then open up the door to have another, world-class fly half in there. He could also shift to wing and fullback, Really, really versatile player. I think that's a really nice move. And then in the back three, this will be an interesting one because Caleb Clark gets the start. He's been the boy a lot of people have been talking about as maybe shouldn't have even got in the team. A lot of people were annoyed that Sean Stevenson was sort of put on that back burner. And people were saying should have got in ahead of Caleb Clark. I haven't seen a lot from Caleb Clark in terms of the club level highlights and stuff, so I really don't know what sort of form he's in. He seems to me that he's always been extremely good with the ball in hand going forwards, but defensively is maybe up for a little bit of question. Kind of a bit like Duan van der Merwe, a really massive unit, really solid at carrying the ball with hand. If you give him open room, he'll absolutely destroy you. But if you really target him as the guy to defend, if you give him some high balls to get underneath and then you put pressure on him, if you challenge him and he's the one that's got to defend you, it might be the easier way around. So we'll have to see how he gets on against this Argentinian side. Narrower is making his debut on the right wing. Hopefully I'm sort of getting that pronunciation right. If there's a better phonetic spelling, feel free to drop it down in the comments. It is a brand new name for me. And then finally, Beauden Barrett goes in the fullback position. Again, a sort of thing I was getting introduced to a bit last year. I think I've also seen him do it for the Blues once or twice, moving to the fullback position. But seeing him at New Zealand, going to fullback, I actually kind of feel like I preferred him at fullback than at 10 when I had seen him play. So this is a really nice mix-up, of course. If it's going completely wrong, I guess there is actually the option to just move Damien McKenzie to 15 and Beauden Barrett to 10. About 20 minutes into the game, it's not working for them. Make a shift up. There's some really nice utility in this New Zealand team. It's one of the things I'm a little bit jealous of as a Wales supporter. We don't really have that ability to just move people to all these different positions. We pretty much just have set positions for so many players. And then in terms of the replacements, then Cody Taylor, Offa Tu'ungafasi, and Nepu Laulala. So that's a solid replacement for Rowe, to be fair. That'll make a nice impact. New Zealand will not want to back down from the physical game that Argentina will be bringing in. Scrum time will certainly be a big one. I wouldn't even be surprised if you see 50 minutes, subs got to reload them and get them on and not let your scrum dwindle against an Argentinian team that will be going for it. Rest of the replacement forwards then, Tupou Vaa'i and Dalton Papali'i. So go with the 5-3. It's always a physical game against Argentina, but seeing the way they were playing last year and opening the game up a bit more, I think this is maybe the right way to go for the 5-3. I'm not actually sure how they'll sort of bring these people on. Out of all of them, I feel like if you were going to take someone off, in that second half, I feel like you're going to take Shannon Frizzell off. I'm not really sure if Dalton Papali'i has played a lot of a blindside flanker. I think of him as an open side flanker. Maybe they put Tupou Vaa'i on, move Scott Barrett back to 6, and take Frizzell off, and they sort of go about that way. I'll have to see how that gets on in the actual game. And then the replacement backs, Finlay Christie, Richie Mo'unga, and Braden Ennor getting his chance back in this side. I really want to see him do a bit more for New Zealand. I always thought he was a very good player. We'll be coming on at some point. But again, another one that I sort of think of him as an outside centre. Will he come on for Rieko Ioane? Will they move Rieko Ioane onto the wing, bring Ennor on, take a winger off if they're underperforming? Man, there's just so much versatility in this New Zealand team. Richie Mo'unga, though, still performing well for the Crusaders. They won the Super Rugby. Still starting on the bench. Richie Mo'unga is one of those lads who I feel like in any other team, Richie Mo'unga starts for so many teams every single game. Just such a tough squad to get into with this New Zealand side. But a solid 1 through 23 across the board for New Zealand for me. So, score prediction for this one. New Zealand playing away. They are favourites going into it. I think they're quite heavy favourites. I think I've seen like 1-5 for New Zealand in terms of odds and stuff. I still think I've got to back New Zealand. I've seen a lot of people saying, watch out for the Argentinian side this year. They're going to do something special. But I'll go with my gut. I'll say a New Zealand win. And I'll say by 12. That's what I'm going to go for, guys. But make sure you drop down your score predictions down in the comment section because I do enjoy having a read through. And if you haven't already, make sure you do sign up to the Super Brew. It's free. It's super easy. There's a whole video up on the channel about how you can join in. It takes 2 seconds. And then you can get involved with the channel, do your score predictions, and also do your fantasy league. Because we've now got the full teams announced. We can now take our time and sit down and design our fantasy leagues and then be really annoyed when my captain probably gets red carded as soon as this game kicks off. But there we have it, guys. That's going to be it for today. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.